Can I ask you about some of the instruments you'll be playing? Is it pronounced a onde Martineau?
Yeah, on Martineau waves, after the inventor Maurice Martineau, Frenchman, in the 1920s. It's a very early electronic instrument. It's a way of making music with electricity in a very 1920s way of thinking. It's interesting.
I love the idea that electricity's been invented and then suddenly someone's already thinking, how can we make music out of this?
Yeah, I think it's often the way that the best ideas happen when these things are relatively new. And that's a good example.
And the tanpura?
Yeah, tanpura, it's an Indian drone instrument. It's usually used just to accompany singers, to provide a kind of tonic to improvising. And it's a very, very fascinating sound to me.
Is it a case of when you master one instrument, you want to immediately discover another? I mean, because you are obviously renowned as a multi-instrumentalist. Are you always looking for the next thing to try?
Yeah, I mean, my fantasy as a young teenager was always driving past music shops and being able to go in and buy something. And it was never about getting more than one guitar. It was always, a different instrument and other sounds to make. And I kind of had the ego to think I could learn them. So yeah, and I still sometimes do that and come back from tours with unlikely instruments, and I find them very interesting.
Talks about the new material that you'll be sort of premiering at this gig.
Well, it's going to mostly be some of the film cues, and we're hoping to do some new music. Maybe some music from films that are still to come out, like Paul Thomas Anderson's next film, Inherent Vice. I don't know, you see, we like to decide on the set list at the last minute, partly as a reaction against the traditional way of setting in stone exactly what an orchestra are going to play 6 months, 12 months from now. Always strikes me as being quite restrictive, and it's more interesting to rehearse lots of things and see what sounds good and play the best that we can.
How do the orchestra feel about that?
I think they prefer it because they end up playing things that, that we also play music by other composers, and they end up playing what they're into at the moment and what they're excited by, not what they were excited by, 18 months ago. And I mean, that's how bands do it as well, really. You play what's sounding good at the moment. So that's why we're always a little bit vague about exactly what people are going to hear. I mean, we know which composers we're likely to play music by. We know that it's going to be mostly film cues and some new music that we've only ever played in Manchester and London, and we've never recorded and are unlikely to ever record. So that's what's going to be new to hear, yeah.
You've carved out this separate, some might say unlikely sort of career as a composer of film music now, justly sort of celebrated for the Paul Thomas Anderson stuff. When you were first approached about doing this, did you have any doubts that you could? Did you have any concerns? Or is it something you just plunged into?
Well, I got tempted into deeper and deeper water, a step at a time, really. Started with Radiohead, writing string arrangements, and then some film music, and then it's very seductive. You work for a long time on something that's only a few minutes long, and you usually only get to hear it once anyway at one concert, and it's a very different dynamic than working with Radiohead, which is all about repetition and working on something slowly, and you hear it the whole time. You know what it's going to sound like. You do make the first good recording of a song, and the final record is going to sound pretty much like that. But with this, it's kind of the opposite. You've got no idea what it's really going to sound like. You can just hope. Yeah, and sometimes it's really exciting. Sometimes it doesn't quite work, and that not knowing is what makes it interesting, I think.
Is it the script that starts giving you the feeling for the music? Is it the images on the screen?
Yeah, it's usually the images and what's happening in the story. I mean, it's which sounds facile, but it's as simple as that, really. It tends to be that big, grander music seems to fit landscapes, and more intimate chamber music seems to fit when personal stories are being told. There's that kind of jump in scale between the two sides of most films, and that's how I usually think of it.
Have you taken inspiration from other films that you've seen before in your own work?
Yeah, it's funny. The film music I really like is often the most poppy, like catchier sort of. I like Henry Mancini and stuff like that. So yeah, and of course Bernard Herrmann and things that are sort of quite melodic and romantic in a way. I sometimes think that doing the stranger, darker sounds is sort of easier, and I've got more admiration for people that do things that are putting over other emotions than just fear and strangeness. That's sort of feels kind of easy in a way.
A Ride reunion is on the cards. Are you excited about that?
I am. Yes, I never saw them live. I was at school when they came out. So yeah, I remember being in the playground talking about this band finally from Oxford, and we were just sort of still in the middle of school and just starting to make music as a band. I don't think I'd even met Tom by that point, but it was a big deal for Oxford for sure. And yeah, I was listening to Vapor Trail this morning actually
to get back in the mood,
yeah, exactly. Those kind of that big washy guitar sound. It's dated very well. It still sounds great.
The Radiohead album, you're working on it now. What can you tell us?
Well, I'm late. They've all gone there now. So we're currently playing and recording, and it's fun. It's fun to see everyone again. It's been a long time coming. We've been waiting, all of us, for a long time.
Does it feel like you're carrying on down the road you were going before? You're looking for sort of new avenues? Is it too early to say?
It always feels when we start up like we still don't know really how to do it, and we don't know quite what to do. And yeah, we're looking down avenues is a very kind way of putting the kind of fumbling that we do, mainly because every time we try and do it like the last time, because that worked, it never seems to work. So we talk about different approaches, and we're currently trying a bunch out.